players probably haven't been in. Like Savjz has been in this situation because he plays a lot of the mage.
Yeah.
But Gaara probably hasn't played much of this matchup or the
Look at
warrior
this.
matchup.
Gaara actually chose the rogue.
He picks the rogue, and I'm interested to see how it'll do.
But it's very curious that imagine people that actually practice a lot.
Right.
They probably don't practice at all with a fatigue mage matchup.
Yeah, it's
unless they want to take it.
Yeah.
They don't practice against it ever.
Yep.
Because it's boring as hell, I suppose. So.
Very little people play it on ladder.
Yeah.
Teammates won't be like,
And
hey, we should practice
It's
some
so
fatigue
unappealing
mage.
to play this deck. It's
Yeah.
so like
It's
not that it's boring, but it's so hard. Like the first time I played it, I brought it out in a best of 3 tournament where you can bring whatever you have left. Okay.
Yeah.
So I lost the game 2 versus Priest, so I could counter game 3, and I went fatigue mage for the first time ever, because I thought, how can Priest beat this ever? Literally. Yeah, I made so many misplays and I still won the game. But I felt so uncomfortable playing it.
Yeah.
And the priest probably messed up because usually you just win as priest against fatigue mage.
Why would you? You have 30
you
HP life total. You don't have armor, which
steal
are
the
you?
Death Lords, and then you you just fatigue the fatigue mage.
See, this is the thing. Like nobody's tested this enough. We have an argument about this matchup. We have an argument about the rogue matchup. Like nobody knows what they're doing.
Okay, Gaara's
Savjz
black
is
now.
the most experienced player with this deck, I would say. And so that's an advantage of bringing it for him, is that other people can't afford to bring this deck because they didn't put in the hours.
Yeah.
And playing against it can be very difficult
The same
sometimes.
applies to rogue though. Not to that big of an extent, but
Yeah.
I'm just happy if we don't see too many fatigue mages in tournaments. It always puts me to sleep.
It's definitely a really interesting deck, and I don't think anybody like truly knows its power level, because it is definitely hard to play and it's hard to figure out like all the different matchups and know what you're doing. So it'll be a while. Like maybe it's just like really overpowered. Who knows? I do know from playing it a bit on ladder, when you lose as fatigue mage, you feel like there's literally nothing you could have done. You're just like, damn. Deathlord gave him Savannah High main.
Yeah.
I didn't draw correctly because the deck plays no draw cards besides Cold Lights. So the hands you get, you're usually stuck with. And if you want to draw cards, your opponent draws cards too.
Yeah, there's like virtual card draw with duplicates, but that's about it.
Yeah, and like we saw last game, there are definitely some ways to play around duplicate and just kind of delay it so that it doesn't give your opponent immediate advantage. So an early Doomsayer again from Savjz, pretty good here. I doubt Gaara wants to expend any resources to get rid of it.
yeah. How much the rogue can do here, so let's get 4 damage
prep
then.
sprint, and that would take him to 9 cards, which would then put him at risk of overdrawing to a Cold Light.
Yeah, that's true.
He could just play Blood Mage to cycle it, and then Redagger. That seems pretty fair.
Often enough, it just seems like not really the optimal thing to do to just play Doomsayer on the board with 1 minion. But what that does is not only does it trade 1 for 1 basically, it also prevents 1 turn from your opponent dropping any minions on the board.
Yeah.
So it actually kind of it gives you an extra turn basically.
I'm not sure like how intentional, like if Savjz knows all of these positions, but this was pretty much the perfect time to play it because, oh wow,
He
what
prepped
is he?
again. Tinkers. Is it?
Oh.
Wow.
So he's gonna kill it.
He's going all in.
This
No, he's not killing it. Is he?
There's not a duplicate on the
This
board.
uses
Okay, he
10
does.
damage into a Doomsayer. That Doomsayer healed him for 10 and denied development. Both preps gone now.
Yeah, that's really interesting actually.
Was it? The question is, was that really worth it?
Yeah, it was definitely a rope influence play.
But at the
You
same
could
time,
tell he was running out of time. He drew cards and he thought he just had to kind of like instinct fight or flight, and he's like, all right,
Wait.
I'm going for
But
it.
don't you think he did this so he could shorten his ends and not fall prey to Oracle as well?
I think when you sprint there, a lot of times you won't
Okay,
draw
you're
into
not
the second
expecting
prep. So when you sprint, you kind of admit like, okay, if he wants the Cold Light, he gets the Cold Light. But this does actually play around Cold Light as well. And Savjz's going to answer it pretty easily just with 1 card.
Yeah.
Gaara didn't lose much card advantage here because he played the sprint beforehand, so really it ends up being like a 1-for-1 at the end of the day. But when you use both preps, you use your Tinker's Oil and you waste 10 damage into a Doomsayer, like how happy can you really be?
Double Oracle.
Oh, lots of overdrawing gonna happen.
1 Violet, 1 Sap, and whatever
Sap
he draws next.
kind of important. Savjz just popping the coin
Yeah.
to
So
keep
backstab
his hand
can.
at 9.
Thing is, it's not a duplicate down there. It's an ice block. So
Yeah. I actually like Gaara's position here isn't too bad. I mean, he's gonna clear these
Yeah, but Gaara must
somehow,
think that's
however
a-
he likes.
Gaara must think it's a duplicate and is really scared of letting me have it. So
This right here is an interesting
Did he kill a
choice.
minion though? He killed the Doomsayer, so he knows it's not duplicate.
was the secret there before?
Yeah,
it was okay.
there.
What do you think about Harrison in Rogue? Is it really necessary?
Harrison is
Some medical,
usually
I
a
guess.
very meta choice. I know that me and my teammates, we brought some Doomhammers to this tournament, so I mean it's definitely good in that case. But sometimes it's definitely just a vanilla 5/4, and you're like, why is this card in my deck? So it's got its ups and its downs. When it's good, it's usually really good, and I think Gaara expected some Paladin. I'm not sure about Warrior. Savjz has Warrior, but I didn't expect much Warrior in this tournament. I don't think there is much, but the Warriors that are here, they actually did pretty well.
This is also a little. This is kind of a funny thing in this matchup because Rogue draws a lot of cards, which usually plays into the Fatigue Magic's hand, but the problem still is that just Rogue, by drawing so many cards, will eventually get all his combo pieces and then can just burst down the mage pretty easily. So that's
if Gaara's running something like Assassin's Blade, I mean, he could just make something like an 8/4 dagger and just do 32 points of damage, which would be pretty insane. I'm not sure if he's running that card, but that's definitely one of your kind of win conditions.
You can
So
see
he's
though
just
that
burning through flame strikes. to
Gaara
keep
has
board
half
clear.
the cards in deck than Savjz, and he's burning them so fast.
How many cards does Gaara have left?
6.
Six.
Savjz is 14.
Okay, so he's on quite a clock, and Savjz definitely has, like, with all this freeze, he has a heal in his hand, he has taunts.
Yeah.
Taunts aren't too relevant because Gaara will
He
probably
has
draw into
4
Sap.
freezes. He has a Doomsayer to go along with one of those
Yeah,
freezes. He has a heal bot. He has a Frostbolt. He has a Deathbolt. He has a Belcher.
I definitely favor Savjz's position here. This is kind of like what I was thinking the matchup would go. It's just really, he's running out of steam pretty quick, and he just might not have enough damage in 30 cards to kill Savjz.
Yeah, with all the heal, with the potential heal coming in and the taunts that also represent heal, it's all about just total damage that Rogue can put out versus the total damage that Mage can heal.
So Savjz is debating here. He's like, do I freeze? Do I freeze in Doomsayer, or do I just put up taunts?
There might be a big play eventually, though, like with Loltham and Tinker Sword
The
Oil.
longer you wait, the weaker taunts get, is what he's thinking. But the other thought is, like, maybe I can just play super safe, and that'll carry me, because he only has, 5 cards left next turn. And so the Rogue's really on a huge clock here. And it kind of makes a compromise between the options, which I like. Second Blade Flurry, not very good for Gaara. Card definitely not that great in this matchup. And I mean, at this point, Blood Mage Thalnos is probably more of a liability than an asset.
Yeah, because it gets him even closer to Fatigue.
Yep. He'll just have to kind of save it for when it pulls some extra damage. He might use it this turn with Blade Flurry to break through the Belcher.
Yeah, after all, there's still no duplicate. The secret from the start has been Ice Block.
Yeah. I still think, like, sure, it's looking heavily skewed in favor of Savjz, but there might be a Loatheb and Sharp Sword Oil poison play into Flurry the turn after or something.
Yeah, he's going to go for the Loatheb right now, and I really like this. He's going to develop while he plays the Loatheb, which means Savjz just can't AoE. Savjz has the Frost Nova, though.
Frost Nova and the Doomsayer to boot.
Frost Nova usually the best counter to Loatheb with this type of deck. Doomsayer's probably just going to die to a flurry, but I mean, the double Blizzard is really going to do a lot of work on this board. And Fan of Knives, again, another card that not great to see if you're Gaara.
Do we
Double
see
Fan,
Thalmos
double
come down?
Flurry.
Thalmos with flurry, or?
Very anti-aggro rogue list here, which is not a good thing in this matchup. You want to be as greedy as possible to beat Fatigue Mage.
So what options does he have here? I can think Thalmos backstab the Doomsayer into Blade Flurry. Allows them to clear the board, but then the Ooze survives.
You could also Thalmos Fan Flurry, or you'd want to Flurry then Fan.
He's trying to make the play where he doesn't play either Fan or Thalmos, I believe.
Yeah, he could do that. The thing is, I just think, like, no matter how much you, at least, like, I know the cards in Savjz's hand, so I know he's got double Blizzard. I think Gaara is actually operating under the thought that maybe he doesn't have AoE, but we know he does, and so he's probably not doing too well on that front. I just think, like, if you try to never draw cards again in this matchup, you probably won't be able to push out enough damage. You'll slowly. It doesn't really matter how fast you die, just the fact that you're dead.
Yeah.
Yeah, it doesn't really matter. That's right.
Blizzard here, and a Death Lord.
Because if you just choose to not draw cards as rogue, then you eventually just have a handful of dead cards.
I heard Kalenta when he was playing Fatigue Mage basically saying a lot of druids were misplaying by using Ancient Lore to heal themselves, thinking like, oh, it's Fatigue Mage, I don't want to draw, but you have to draw. You have to outpace them.
Yeah.
The weakness of the Fatigue Mage deck is that it doesn't play a lot of draw, and it only has 10 mana to work with every turn.
Yeah.
You have to tempo them out somehow where they can't clear your board, heal, taunt, and all that at the same time.
That's asking for a lot, though, when you have 10
You
mana
just have to keep
available.
a steady flow of threats, so Mage eventually just runs out of the answers.
Or force them to use their answers in suboptimal
It's
positions.
You just have to remember about the Fatigue Mage deck is, even like in this game where it seems like Savjz has all the answers, since the deck plays almost no draw, it's pretty inconsistent in getting those answers. Almost kind of like drawing Wild Growth and Druid.
Savjz still has more than 1/3 of his deck in remaining, and he already drew both his Planeswalkers and both his Blizzards.
Yep.
And both Doomsayers. So all of his board clear.
This is so sketchy.
Yeah, and board clear is really what you're looking for against a deck like Rogue.
Rope is gonna burn, guys. He's gonna heal up to low flip out of Blizzard range.
Yeah. Gaara is really thinking now. He's like, okay, he's played 2 Flame Strikes, he's played a Blizzard, he has 10 cards left. Hopefully he just doesn't have that second Blizzard.
Yeah.
And he does. It's pretty unfortunate. We might see Savjz like Polymorph here, or Frostbolt
Polymorph
Ping.
Blizzard. Polymorphing Blizzard, I guess. Nah. Frostbolt there.
Going for the Frostbolt Ping.
Into Blizzard.
Be really interesting if he didn't Blizzard this turn. I think that'd be too greedy, but Savjz is very experienced with this deck, so he generally knows moments in which he can be really greedy. And this is his last AoE available in his hand anyway.
I mean,
But
the Rogue has the Thalmos and
The
5
bad
spells.
thing for Gaara is even if Savjz runs out of AoEs, Gaara doesn't really have any more threats to get AoE'd. So this is pretty much the last stand for Gaara's deck.
Yeah, that's kind of the weakness of the Rogue deck. Most of the damage is getting put down by spells and weapons.
If there was an Assassin's Blade in Gaara's deck and he draws it right as he's about to lose, it'd be really unfortunate. Just like last game with the Archmage.
Yeah, so Blizzard coming off and he turns the ball.
Especially considering the amount of cards that he drew. Yeah.
Yeah.
Is he trading or going face? Okay, going face.
Almost out of cards.
Oh, that's
and
the card
it's
you
a
want to see.
sprint. Oh no.
Come on, just play the sprints. You want to see it.
Give us the sprint Sudoku. Jeez. So Gaara's list, like I thought, I mean, after seeing this list, I really don't like it against Freeze Mage or against Fatigue Mage. Double sprint, double fan, double flurry, like all really weak cards.
Harrison Jones.
Maybe there was a bit of like draw luck here for Savjz drawing all 4 of his AoEs relatively quickly. And Savjz actually, earlier, he had a rare moment where he could play 2 Cold Light Oracles and actually overdraw his opponent and not get punished. So he got to draw 4 extra cards basically for free, which normally you can't do because you can't afford to give your opponent cards.
By the way, concerning the fact that we can't see Gaara's face, apparently the camera's really sensitive and they're only going to be able to fix it by the next match, so.
Aww. Gaara is definitely really focused during his matches. He almost always keeps like the same pose. At least he seems very unaffected by stuff that happens. But definitely not having the best of it in these matches.
There's 1 card left for the road.
Sapping not really doing much here.
Yeah.
We're probably just going to see Frostbolt come out and that should wrap things up.
Yeah, heal bot Frostbolt and trade. Pretty simple. And Rogue has no minions left. Even if this is minion.
You're really interested to see
Okay, there you go.
what can beat Fatigue Mage, because when Fatigue Mage finally loses, it's probably going to be really anticlimactic, and it's just going to be like, oh damn, he got a bad draw.
Well, I mean, I guess we'll find out next game because
Yep, this
Gaara.
is Gaara's last
Hunters
chance.
should still beat Fatigue Mage.
Gaara with Warrior, right?
Gaara with Warrior, so looking at his potential to sweep, I mean, potential to 3-0 is always low percentage, but he's got Warrior versus Fatigue Mage. I'd say, you know, at worst, he's okay in that matchup. Warrior Mirror, you know, 50-50. Warrior versus Paladin is probably where he's really going to struggle. Not a great matchup. Just going to concede this game knowing he doesn't even have close to enough damage to finish.
Another victory for Savjz, man. I mean, he's just tearing through this tournament so
And now
far.
Gaara's on to Warrior only.
Yeah, he lost to Faramir has been his only loss so far. I caught the tail end of the 5th game, and it was actually, he drew his Harrison Jones against Jiraxis 1 card late, and basically Faramir was able to win from there. Faramir also drew both Mountain Giants in his last 5 cards, so kind of lucky and unlucky for both players. It was a 3-2 series, so really close.
Yeah, and right now, I mean, Savjz, the first match that we had on stream, Savjz beat, who was it, Cypher, 3-0 with the Paladin deck. So he still has that one at his disposal.
Yeah.
Has been performing very well with it.
I didn't watch, but I'm fairly certain he's playing kind of like the slower Paladin with...
Yeah, the healer.
He plays double lay on hands and an anti-heal bot.
Yeah.
Yeah, we saw 1 of each at least.
I'm pretty sure that even if Gaara manages to win with his Warrior, it's going to be pretty hard for him to defeat the Paladin.
Paladin's definitely what you're most scared of here.